I had a banana.
It's still really realistic.
Dude,
And the banana was not curved at all. It was a perfectly straight banana. I felt so erotic.
Alright, so we're here for the second episode of the Bucket Podcast. I'm Pete Green, that's Charlie Kemp.
Great to be here, Pete.
Will Summers.
G'day.
Duncan McIntyre.
Yes.
And Phil Peters.
Yeah, buddy.
First thing we'd like to talk about, let's get straight into it, is the NBN. Coalition released their policy this week, which is basically a bit cheaper, but you get 25% of the peak speed that you would get off the government's NBN plan. So it's sort of you pay what you get what you pay for, but it's not quite as good value for money.
Don't you get less than what you pay for?
Well, yeah, I mean,
theoretically,
compared to the government's plan, you get 25% of the speed. It's 25 megabits per second as opposed to 100.
Yeah,
and it's
I thought it was 75% of the cost of the NBN.
Yeah, so it's like you get 25% less cost, but for 75% less service.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
Here's the thing: they
okay,
25% of the time it's as fast every time.
Yeah. I think
Well, except it
won't
be.
Isn't.
Yeah.
It's basically
Except
a
that's
worse,
completely
a worse
the opposite.
deal.
100% of the time, it won't be as fast any of the time.
Obviously, the Honourable Malcolm Turnbull.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, Malcolm Turnbull is the only reason the coalition has a reasonable broadband policy. I mean, before he put his foot down about this, Tony Abbott was saying he was going to rip the NBN out of the ground.
Yeah.
And they weren't going to replace it.
Which is very cost effective.
Yeah.
You know.
And just keep with
when you're talking about government wastes, ripping up in
I actually heard that he was going to do it by himself.
Well, his bare hands.
You expect him to let government agencies
Well,
get in the way?
This simultaneously solves the NBN and the asylum seeker issue.
Forced work, like labor
exactly.
camps.
Forced labour camps.
Unpaid.
There you go.
I don't think that's.
You got to earn your way into this country.
I don't think that's the problem.
That's the solution. That got dark.
Yeah, don't they want to get rid of the asylum?
I think me and Kemp would like to distance ourselves from those remarks. But what really annoys me is when you hear people say that, 25 megabits a second, that's enough for an average user. Like yes, in the mid-90s when all anyone was doing on the internet was checking emails, but people now are, a regular and completely reasonable use for anyone's internet connection is downloading
HD porn.
Not necessarily porn, but like huge HD movie files, lots of TV episodes,
Pirates
this
too.
kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Stop trying to undermine my legitimate points, Summers.
BDS.
Isn't that what we brought him on here for? But the problem with the speed argument is you can see there is kind of like a point where it becomes irrelevant. Like the speed, the difference in milliseconds between the time it takes you to click on the time it takes you to load the funny cat gif is fast approaching. What's the point?
But the difference between 25 and 100 megabits a second is noticeable.
No, and definitely. And in the US, Google is rolling out their Google Fiber.
Just one gigabyte a second.
Gigabits.
1 gigabit a second.
Yeah,
that's insane.
Yeah, which is.
Is that illegal?
It's 1,000 times.
It's 1,000. It's. I mean, if the NBN...
Did you say is that illegal? I only just registered that.
It's too fast.
That's practically a steel paper. It's got to be illegal.
Yeah, I mean, 1,000...
God didn't make internet to be that fast.
Well, yeah, I guess, if you want to put it like that. That's the argument of most coalition.
Yeah, with your argument about speed, they'll be fine if websites stay the same quality, but they're constantly getting better and better, so you do need the speed.
And that's the thing.
increase.
I mean, if you are, I mean, okay, I'll relate this to something that I know personally. Video game file sizes have increased dramatically. So I remember a time when I was less
developed.
Well, I would say I tended to acquire my games in less than
Legal
ways. Yeah, and the thing that would stop me is if the file size was too big. In those days, that was less than a gigabyte.
Yeah.
Now I just recently bought BioShock Infinite instead of buying it off Steam and then downloading it, because the download is over 16 gigabytes.
So the
For a
NBN is
single
like
game.
sponsoring crime effectively by making it easier to
God damn it, Will.
pirate
No.
videos.
Yeah.
No, but
I think
that's
what we're
okay. That's
trying
an
to say
example.
Is that
Games.
we need the government to provide NBN to us so we can play BioShock Infinite.
Yeah.
No, but the counter argument to the NBN, which I imagine is probably something you're slightly sympathetic to, Kemp, is that you shouldn't. That the government rolling out such a huge infrastructure project will not normally be the most efficient allocation.
Who's that? Who did
Cam.
this? Answer it.
It's
Answer it. Put it on loudspeaker.
It's on the
Answer
wrong
it. Put it on
Just keep
loudspeaker.
it on the wrong
Sorry, Mum. I'm just in the middle of a podcast. at the
No
moment.
way. No way.
Yeah, I'll call you back.
Ask her what she thinks about the NBN.
Cool. See you, Liz. Bye. Love you too. Sorry, lads. That was my girlfriend.
Go on,
Yeah.
mate.
Anyway. Yeah. Everyone, check your phone. Don't try to do it subtly. The government might waste our money in rolling out such a huge infrastructure project, but I think the scope of the infrastructure project, they're talking about providing high-speed broadband internet to every single home
And talking about-
in Australia, and providing wireless services to people in the bush.
Exactly. And people who are still on dial-up.
Yeah, and I think that is like just the cost of it and the potentially low reward for effort in terms of like private business. I think makes it unattractive to private business, and obviously because we're so far behind the rest of the world already in terms of broadband speed. There's a demand for higher speed broadband, and if it was a viable project for private industry, it would have already been embarked upon.
Yeah.
I think my concern though is that especially in cities like Melbourne, or your main cities in Australia, have got reasonably what I would consider decent broadband.
Sure, but
and I'm more than happy for the government to lay out the NBN to areas which currently don't have any access to sort of fast internet. And I know that we're currently behind in sort of speed of would that be wireless or that's all
Satellite
cable or whatever. And but I don't know if that's an issue with the way sort of private business has gone about it, or whether the fact that it's an issue of us just not being competitive enough.
Well, I think,
for example, Google has just sort of outlaid fiber optics, which can do a gigabyte a second. Now, why isn't that going on in Australia?
Because there's no reason for them to.
Well, what's the reason? Well, it's because
Google is not traditionally a provider of internet.
Yeah,
So
and
But why is that happening in America but not in Australia?
But Google isn't rolling it out all over America. This is just in-house trials. They've developed a type of fiber optic cable which can handle that kind of speed.
But why is it that Australia?
Because it's way easier for companies like Telstra and Optus and iiNet and TPG or whatever, whoever you're with, to charge you $80 a month for something that otherwise in the world would not be that expensive.
The telemarketing industry within Australia is extremely hard to break into.
With telemarketing?
Telecommunications.
Okay.
I got confused there for a second.
Well, yeah, but
partly because of there's a shitload of regulation within our telecommunications area.
But it's also
one company
because,
owns the infrastructure.
Oh, the infrastructure, and it's the same thing. Like if you think about it in terms of like Melbourne's public transport industry, right. No matter how many different players you get in on the different for trams,
whether it's like
whatever.
Ventura Bus or National Buses,
whatever, they're all relying on the same outdated infrastructure. And if you actually spent the money and completely renewed all of Melbourne's train lines,
like when the government tried to fix our ticketing system.
Yeah.
Sure, but that's
I completely understand.
Yeah, I mean, yes, there's risks involved.
I just think it can be done so much more efficiently if we actually broke up the sort of who owns the wire. So at the moment, Telstra owns
All of it.
All
The
of
copper.
it.
The
And
copper.
The copper.
Yeah.
Which
and
is-
so what would be better is if the government, split it up and took away some of it.
But
and
then
brought
they'd
it
have to. So in that case, they'd have to buy all the copper off Telstra at the price that Telstra would set, sell off the copper. Well, I mean, and
It's quite easy to do. They were going to do it.
But this is the problem.
where's at the end of that?
Yeah.
Right. So at the end of that, you got a bunch of
You
different
still got
companies
your
that
shitty
own
25
where-
megabits
yeah,
a
where's
second,
the
right.
incentive for all of them to upgrade different little chunks
Well,
of the infrastructure
If
at different
If
rates?
international companies are delivering high-speed broadband for the same price in Australia, then obviously they see that Australia is a great opportunity to
But they have to
get involved
upgrade.
in the
They would
market.
then have to factor in the cost of upgrading the infrastructure.
Yeah, it's not.
Which
And
is
I guess-
high
and
in
like-
Australia because it's so big. And
Yeah, and because
difficult
we're
to
still
do.
running
Yeah.
on phone lines that were put
I'm
in
more than
70
happy for
years
the
ago.
government to invest money in it, but the question is, are they actually going to get it done properly?
Well,
Yeah, well,
I-
and that seems to be like it is happening, and
Yeah.
like
It'll just be
all
cost
government,
blowout.
exactly like all government initiatives, it's likely to be more expensive than we think it is
Yeah,
because
it'll
of
happen, but
something
it's
they
still
haven't
expensive.
exactly, but it'll get there eventually, and the
Unless
the
Tony Abbott rips
fundamental.
them out.
Yeah, true.
Rips out the
But the
cables.
fundamental kind of reasoning for it is sound, and a lot of, and this is the interesting thing compared to something like Mikey.
And it's hardly like it has just like gone ahead without any kind of forethought. There's been
Yeah.
study after study after study about this thing, and then it finally arrived at what I think the general consensus is a reasonably well thought out, well educated, sensible way to do this.
But what I was going to say about the difference between what this is and Mikey is that Mikey is already a system that's been like done in other countries better. So we'd already like latched ourselves onto a incompetent system, whereas this like the NBN structure with the fiber
really.
rolling out.
The system
there's
which
no
they
other
copied was the
options.
Oyster system.
Yeah, but the
which runs extremely well.
yeah, but
But no, they copied it in terms of the idea of it. They didn't use the same
but
software or
it
the same
applied to
company.
Phil. It wasn't that it was an inefficient system
Yeah.
to begin with. It was actually quite good.
yeah,
The
sure.
company just didn't do it.
I don't think anyone. I think that's. I don't think like the Mikey versus NBN
I'm not
is a very fair comparison.
No,
Because I don't think anyone's arguing that the Mikey system is in any way competent or effective. It's the poster child for government fuck ups. I think like everyone sort of respects the fact that the NBN has like there's been quite a bit of thought going through it, and like I think that can be shown by the fact that the opposition's argument isn't that it's going to be this this huge waste of money. It's that their plan is cheaper. Like that's basically all they're running with, and I think that's short sighted, and they're selling out a important opportunity to invest in better infrastructure for the future. For the sake of being able to go to the next election,
Yeah, and
with
I'm
a
not
simple, easy to sell
yeah,
line.
I'm not completely against it, but it just seems like a huge sort of amount of money dedicated to giving us faster broadband in areas in which we already have decent broadband. When the money could be directed into areas which can just be so much.
But
cheaper.
it also like it's across the board. So theoretically, it should give everyone 100 megabits a second.
And to their credit, they are rolling it out in rural areas first.
Yeah.
And that's like that
Yeah,
because they're the hardest thing to do.
Well, they're doing a cross section.
Isn't it just,
they're doing like some metropolitan areas
safe
and a couple
coalition
of rural areas.
seats, borderline coalition seats that are getting it first, so that they can try and win the support of the.
That's what I would do.
Well, but to be fair,
I actually thought that's what they were
I'm not
doing.
sure. I'm not sure if that's exactly what they're doing,
Yeah.
but I know they are doing. They've like the rollout sites have been. They've tried
Country
to do it
places.
like country places, and then also like inner city. I think Brunswick
Yeah,
Yeah,
was one of the first places to get it, so that they can like sort
Compare,
out problems
yeah.
in different areas.
Does anyone know how much it's going to cost?
They say it's gonna.
yeah,
They say
too
it's gonna
much.
cost more.
that's how much.
They say it's gonna cost more.
I think
$20 billion. Isn't
I
it?
think it's
But
like,
it-
and I
but-
think the coalition one is
100
about
million.
14. Well, because the coalition came out 2 weeks ago saying that it was going to cost $90 billion or something, and then Conroy just came out and sort of had a long chuckle at a press conference and said, "Yeah, sure." Just because you'd say that doesn't make it true.
How much does anyone know?
Hold on. You
Because I think it's a big deal
But
about
here's
it.
the-
Arguing for it.
But I think it's right. It was about 20 to 30. I think was the kind of.
I understand the premise of it, but like my main concern is that it seems like a huge cost, especially in these areas.
But the
to
cost-
get fast broadband.
Okay, I'll
Like,
put it
that's
to
not
you. I'll put it to you a different way. The cost of actually maintaining the copper infrastructure costs $1 billion a year.
Yeah.
Okay, and it costs Telstra. If I'm not mistaken, it costs both Telstra and the government like varying amounts of that.
I'm not worried about what it costs Telstra.
No, but I mean like that it's degrading. That's the point though. Like you can only in the coalition NBN plan, you can only kind of upgrade it so much until you're so far behind everyone else that the fiber that we can then put in 20 years down the line. Okay, when it's actually like when the copper network is actually degrading and actually screwed, the fiber will be cheaper to put in, sure, but at that point you're already so far behind the rest of the developed world. Then, I mean, like, what's the point?
I woke up this morning to the sound of jackhammering going on in the street, and I thought, thank God the NBN has come to but no,
everybody knows where you live.
some dodgy, some dodgy. Like,
if you would also like
Greek
to stock
construction workers like destroying a piece of concrete
that's a shame.
and forcing me to cross.
Well, at least we have that. At least we have that to look forward to.
That's
The laying of the fiber.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. This is on the official NBN website. How much will the NBN rollout cost? On the 8th of August, I'm reading here, on the 8th of August 2012, NBN Co's corporate plan 2012-2015 confirmed the total cost expenditure for the project estimated $37.4 billion, less than the government's original $43 billion estimate.
Well, there you
This
go.
government expects to contribute $30.4 billion in equity for the rollout.
But I mean, the role of the government.
The coalition's is headlined at 17 billion. So it's about half. So it's half the price, but you only get 25% of the service.
But you then have to factor in the cost to maintain the copper over a number of years, and then eventually upgrade the entire
How
system.
much does it cost to keep the fiber technology?
Well, yeah, like
How do we keep it happy?
you got to feed it, you got to water it, got to groom
I
it.
think markedly less than the copper network.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because it's still going to have some sort of degradation.
Oh yeah, there's absolutely. I mean, with any kind of infrastructure project, there's upkeep. But the problem with keeping copper in the ground is that no one can possibly argue that in 20 or 30 years we are still going to be using copper in any like first world broadband.
Especially when today other areas of the world are already beating the supposedly the theoretical cap for the coalition plan. Whereas theoretically if you upgrade the fiber network over the years, you can still upgrade. You will be able to get higher speeds.
Yeah.
I mean that's like they say they'll be finished by 2020 or something, 20 whatever. By that time, it may well be possible to push it further, but we're already kind of at the limit of the existing copper system.
Yeah. So like it's really easy to say it's half the price. They're saving you. How much is it? Is that $13 billion, which is a lot of money, but it's for something which will inevitably have to be replaced anyway.
And
Australia, to be fair, you wouldn't have to rip up the entire of the coalition's policy because the section of it that goes to the node in everyone's neighbourhood is fibre optic. So all you'd need to do is replace all the copper in everyone's neighbourhood. But that's what the NBN is aiming to do anyway. So the NBN does the whole job in one whack. The coalition is basically saying, let's spend $17 billion on this now, but we all kind of know that in a few years we're going to have to finish the job. So I think it's...
And Australia is in a position economically, compared to
do it
other
now.
countries,
Yeah.
exactly.
Now is it
debt?
Yeah,
Debt is good.
but everyone is in debt more than us.
Yeah, true.
I'm not saying that being in debt is good, but compared to the rest of the world, we are
Everyone
in such
sucks,
good shape.
but we just suck a little bit.
Well,
less.
yeah, but that matters.
So we're in the perfect state.
But that matters when you're only like competitors or the people you're
And
you're
$40
dealing
billion,
with.
that's not much.
I think mainly
Compared to GDP, like our percentage of debt in terms of GDP
isn't that high.
tiny compared with
minuscule.
all other comparable economies and some uncomparable economies. But let's move on. We want to talk about. Do we want to talk about cuts to student?
Well, I
funding,
guess
or do we wanna-
we're on the spending less for
spending less for getting more, or spending more for getting less.
yeah.
So Phil, you're sort of more across this than I am.
Well, I'm only more across this in that I have seen people.
The headlines.
Yeah, basically. And like what I got from it is it's basically transplanting money from the like budget going to universities and putting it in the budget going to primary and secondary education.
Yeah.
As part of the great Gonski review that has, been spruiked so hard.
Yeah, so pretty much the opposition is attacking this and saying that
how dare you?
there shouldn't be money
Which
coming out from
let's face it, if the
universities.
if the opposition ever comes out and supports a policy on the very first day it's announced, I will.
Well, it doesn't happen often.
No.
But I don't think that's a really. That's the whole point of democracy.
But what was more interesting?
Yeah.
Everyone just agreed there wouldn't be two parties.
Me and Kemp here have just done just tried to get a bit more information. This Google cutting
You're using
student
Yahoo.
funding.
You're using Yahoo 7 though. So
Yeah, I know.
Let's be clear.
I know, but it's amazing how many different countries this has brought up headlines for most of the English-speaking
I want to hear what
world.
the Isle of Man has to say.
What was interesting though is that whole university student kind of backlash, which was like, I mean, yeah, like they're taking money away from our university, but they're putting it in the secondary education. It really depends on where the money's coming from and what's going to be cut. Because if it's like the TAFE cuts, where a whole bunch of like courses and stuff like gets taken out, or if it's school things they were talking about are really unfortunate. So it's stuff like that. Some HEC. If you pay your HECs up front, then you get 10% off it or something. They can take that away. That'll give them some more cash and
they were saying, all the universities are saying they'd start with administration fees to cut down on, but that can only take them so far, and after that they'll start cutting courses that have low student intakes.
So the wine tasting course at Melbourne Uni will keep its rigorous tradition.
Well, it's 90% of the student body. That's that one, so they'll keep that one. But yeah, most of the language courses have quite low intakes in the Victorian universities.
The whole like leveling system in language could probably be, what are they, 10 levels or something? Yeah. So theoretically, if you cut that down and kind of like put everyone together, that's one way you could do it. But that seems like a pretty.
Well, that's
yeah.
But how does that work? Because then you've got advanced students.
Well,
in the same
I'm not saying you
classes.
put like
Some
level 1s and level 10s
speak.
together, but you kind of just like amalgamate the knowledge. Like some of the people will know a bit more than some of the other people, which is
communism.
Yeah, I don't know if that would work, but
yeah, I was trying. I was for the sake of argument, I was trying to make an example.
They're constantly looking at ways they can save money, but at the end of the day, the professors and all the deans of the universities are saying that they can't get out of this without cutting classes and without firing professors.
Yeah, and it seems like it seems like it's going to make it harder for, especially if it's stuff to do with HECs, and it might end up making it harder for people to go to uni, which I guess is the primary concern.
Yeah. Why don't they just open up paid spots again so they can get the money back?
Yeah.
What's
and they're reducing
So
the.
if you got it, it used to be that if to enter law at Monash University, you needed 99.5. If you got 98, if you got in between that and 98 point something,
you could pay your way in.
So you could pay for your spot.
That's even worse.
No, I don't have an issue with that.
But
what happened?
That's so classist.
No,
but I'm not sure. Before this like develops into full-on class war, can I just jump in and say that I'm not sure that actually helps, sort of like struggling regional universities, which tend to be the hardest hit by funding cuts anyway. Because I'm not sure some kid who's on the borderline of getting into whatever course he wants to get at some regional university is gonna, oh, it's okay, I didn't quite make the grade, but I'll just spend my way in. I'm not sure that's.
But if you had that system, that would mean that at least some universities would be getting money.
Yeah, but I think you'd see, it'd be Melbourne Uni, it'd be Monash, it'd be Deakin, it'd be La Trobe, and those aren't, but they're not the ones struggling for money anyway.
They're the ones that are complaining.
Yeah, and like Monash and Melbourne are always going to bitch and moan if their funding gets cut, but at the end of the day, they're not going to shut down.
Yeah. They're in no real tangible.
Yeah,
danger.
Monash just spent several $1 million redoing the inside of a building they should have pulled down in the 60s. They're obviously they can say they're short of cash all they want, but the facts kind of beg to differ.
Yeah. What's the point of cutting university funding just to give it to secondary schools when the aim of secondary schooling, unless you go into the workforce, is to get into a university.
Exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is true. I think it seems unfortunate to sort of be stealing from Peter to pay Paul in the like inside the same
in
sector.
the education system.
Yeah. I mean, you'd almost rather they took the money
just
from some
tax
other...
asylum seekers or someone.
Someone just asked me though.
Why don't we just take all the money out of public hospitals and give it to universities? Because we don't really need both.
If someone was to ask me where would the money be better spent, I would believe it'd be better spent in secondary education. Because
you
doesn't actually mean to get into university, but to get into your TAFE. Like you need
But why not give both of them money?
Exactly. Why not?
Why not everyone have money?
But I mean, even if you're not going into like tertiary or TAFE or higher education, then like a better educated country is a better outcome. Because it's not like people are going to get dumber because some like university courses are being taken away.
Yeah.
But the entire system might be improved.
But like you say, Kemp, like why not why not just give everyone money? And like it's funny, but I honestly believe that in an area like education, it is genuinely worth running up a bit of debt and actually improving a service which is a universal good for the society.
You can easily argue against Mikey or the NBN, but something like education or hospitals or
you can take our NBN and our Mikeys, Kemp, but you can't take our education.
Well, like it's like a lot of money gets wasted at these institutions just because they realise that a lot of the time that money's just handed to them. So I reckon in all seriousness, I think this is time for the universities to pick up their game.
The fact that Melbourne unis...
Let's face it, like if you go to a private secondary school, then that's the culture. Is that you have more money than everyone else. How can we use it?
Well, Melbourne University's first reaction was, we'll cut down on administration costs. Like if we lose $50 million, because that's what they were planning on losing if this went
But what
through.
does administration cost?
Yeah, but I'm saying like if that's their first reaction, not like don't take our money. They're just like we'll cut down on administration costs. I mean, how much?
It's not like saying we'll have to sell off half the campus.
Yeah.
Obviously there is a fair bit of
swimming in money.
I mean, have you seen Melbourne or Monash? They're hardly sort of
dilapidated. Right?
Yeah, they're rolling in it. But let's move on.
Yeah, it seems pertinent that we move on to Thatcher.
Yes.
At this point.
This might seem sort of like last week's news, but this actually happened about 2 hours after we recorded last week's podcast. We'll have to catch up on it now. In the wake of the news of Margaret Thatcher's death, there was a motion passed by the University of Melbourne Student Union to celebrate Margaret Thatcher's death. By watching a movie that criticised her, and we're going to pass this
burning an effigy of her, and
having a party.
That we're going to have a party, I believe. And this has caused a bit of uproar. I wrote for the Bucket,
our favourite website,
disagreeing with it. What do you mean our favourite website? This is the Bucket Journal podcast. What do you think?
It's our favourite website.
I've actually,
it's my favourite website.
It's my homepage.
Kemp's got the motion up here.
So it read that
give us your motion, Kemp.
The Students' Council recognised the horrific legacy of Margaret Thatcher and her neoliberal policies that destroyed the lives of millions. Her violent crushing of the miners' strike, her oppression of the Irish and murder of Bobby Sands and other hunger strikes. Her unconditioned support for right-wing dictators.
Who cares?
That reads like a socialist alternative.
And
that was literally the most.
And her support let me finish the motion. And her support for apartheid in South Africa, among many other things, and celebrate her death unreservedly.
Unreservedly.
Students also commits to organising a screening of the Ken Loach film "Which Side Are You On?" to further celebrate this event.
Yeah, and to be fair. And I wrote a piece for the Bucket saying that this was complete bullshit and they should never have done it. But the first half of that, before they get to and celebrates her death unreservedly, it's in incredible bad taste, but fair enough.
Yeah, exactly.
You're an independent body. I don't believe in like unreserved hero worship of people just because they're dead. If you strongly disagree with their policies,
But this is
That's-
the thing.
I
the problem-
completely disagree with that because this body is voted in by this.
Exactly.
student.
It's a representative
Like,
body.
It's the government of the of the
Yeah.
university to represent and to pass a motion like this, which has nothing to do with representing the student body's views and is just out of bad taste. Like I don't even think saying that her neoliberal policies that destroyed the lives of millions and her violent crushing of the miners' strikes, like that's extreme hyperbole. Like I don't even think.
Well, no,
that's
it's not hyperbole, it's subjective.
a lot of people would agree with that, but my point is that it's not the place of the student union.
Yeah, but you said it was
to say
fair
that.
enough. Like,
Well,
yeah,
no,
it's
no,
not-
You
no,
could
no,
argue,
no,
but no,
no,
he's
no,
saying
it's
you
not the
you could argue those points with
Yeah.
with
I
a decent amount of
don't-
evidence, and people
Yeah,
would
but that has
disagree
nothing
with
to
you.
do with this argument. Like,
No, and exactly. People would disagree with you if you wanted to argue those
Yeah.
points. But there's no reason for the Monash, Melbourne Union,
Yeah.
the student union, to celebrate. It's not. It's
Yeah.
like it's got nothing in their charter to celebrate the deaths of people they don't like.
And I've been involved in this, and
The student union, not the.
well, no, we've been writing a petition to get signatures to remove the individuals who passed this
remove them?
motion. Yeah, from the union.
The university. Oh, the
Yeah,
union.
from the union.
Okay.
And the biggest issue I had with this is that the immediate reaction to the people who supported this was if you didn't support them, they were like, "Oh, you supported Thatcher," and you're like, "No, that's not what we're arguing.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with Thatcher and her policies."
I'm-
The argument here is that you're using your
Position, your power.
your position of power to pass a motion that reflects
not
your
representative,
opinion
yeah.
and your opinion.
It's
only.
just they're basically.
That's just
And
like
not only
your
that-
opinion, man.
Yeah, and not only that, but like
Be a dude,
I just hate
guys.
this idea that you're celebrating the death of somebody because they had policies that disagreed with your own.
This is like
Yeah. It's
Like,
the fact that they're having this errant criminal.
Well, people like danced in the streets.
Yeah,
No, no, no.
London.
But
that
but
was-
they
and
amassed
they
at the
No, no,
White
no,
House
that-
like you
that
amassed at
was-
St. Peter's
That
Square.
was more like our government is so awesome that like we had operatives that eliminated Osama bin Laden.
But-
It wasn't
but-
like
yeah,
Osama
okay,
bin
fair
Laden
enough.
is
But-
dead.
They weren't. To be
Let's
fair, they
burn
weren't burning effigies of Osama bin Laden. They were holding up flags.
But just to go back to Kemp's point, I think actually surprisingly, sort of a bit out of left field, Russell Brand wrote a sort of surprisingly eloquent and beautiful article about this.
I know what you're going to say, but this doesn't have to do.
No,
with
no, can I?
This
Can I finish?
I've read the article though.
Yeah.
It's just an anti-Thatcher article.
No. But his point
Yeah.
is that if you are anti-Thatcher,
Yeah.
because you thought she was brutal and inhumane in her treatment of people, then by openly celebrating her death, you are sinking to her level. You know, this wasn't the whole point of his article.
Yeah.
But if you're
If that's how you feel,
if
you can't possibly not feel some dissonance there.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think his line was that if love is something that you cherish, then death is difficult to celebrate even in one's enemies.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's sort of counterintuitive for these people who say that Thatcher is brutal and inhumane.
When they
and
said
I'm
that-
and I'm glad she's left behind 2 orphan children and 6
Yeah.
grandchildren, and now she's in the ground.
When they
You know,
themselves believe that that's what she did to them.
And even this statement is sort of counterintuitive because there's motion here because they're saying we recognise that she caused the death of Bobby Sands and they mention other people and now we're rejoicing in her death. And there was someone on I think it was one of the Socialist Alliance pages on Facebook was saying that they posted something as a reaction to the reaction of this motion, saying so like you were saying before that if you don't support the motion, then you support Thatcher or something. And I just commented saying, you're openly celebrating the fatal stroke of someone's grandma.
Yeah.
At a very basic human level, you just need to step back
Someone's
and have a
grandma.
look at what you're actually doing. Regardless of who she was politically, she wasn't so bad that she forfeited her humanity. It's different to celebrate the death of someone like Hitler, who arguably did something so horrific during his lifetime that he forfeited the right to be considered as a human being. But Thatcher was a
Thatcher was pretty bad, man.
but she was an unprecedentedly successful democratically elected leader of Britain.
Yeah.
And woman leader of Britain.
Yeah.
Well,
First.
although I read some interesting stuff saying that perhaps her triumph was more a triumph of individualism than feminism,
Yeah.
which is sort of an interesting.
No, but I mean,
that's
as a thing in itself, that is still
to be sure.
a landmark.
I tell you
It's
what
still a
annoyed me
landmark.
most about this though was that it was passed by the individuals from the Socialist Alliance, but
And
yet,
some independents.
they used to have the names on here, but they took them away.
It's not
But
a democracy
inherently,
yeah.
it's basically a light form of fascism in a way. You were celebrating the death of a political opponent because they had different political beliefs to you, and I just feel that's just and nobody has even considered that.
And it comes
But inherently, that's extremely authoritarian.
And it comes back to the contradiction. They're saying that Thatcher, attacked people's political freedoms and shut down people who didn't agree with her. So now that she's dead,
Let's attack everybody's political freedom and shut down.
Yeah.
It's fundamentally a very, I think, confused.
Yeah, whether or
amateurish-
not you agree or even like understand Thatcher's the Thatcher's legacy.
Which the majority of people don't.
Yeah,
I'm sure
she was a decisive leader.
Character, yeah.
Yeah.
Although I think it's easy to dismiss Russell Brand because he's Russell Brand, but he does actually write very intelligently about it. And and this is the thing that annoys me. There are a lot of people who wrote in the big newspapers and elsewhere, very educated people who wrote about her legacy and said that it had done horrible things to Britain, and that's an entirely
Subjective,
legitimate thing to do.
Yeah.
Yes, it's subjective, but that I don't think that just because somebody's dead that suddenly you have to forget. If you think they've wronged you or you think that they destroyed your society or whatever. But that doesn't mean that you have to attack them and vilify them on a
And the issue is that this is a representative body.
The thing is that I actually just from my beliefs, I wouldn't care if they did have a party in her death. The issue I have is that they're using a representative body to represent their
They're
own.
using their position.
It's probably fair enough if some of the miners or whatever relations
Or
of that
even-
Sanchez
or
guy.
even the socialist
Bobby
Sands.
the Irish hunger striker Sanchez.
The Mexican version.
Yeah.
Mexican.
Yeah, so
Sanchez.
like is his
cousin,
family,
his cousin, Mexican cousin.
Jesus.
if his family
He
decided
escaped the
to have a
federales
fiesta
to
or
Why not
whatever,
have both?
to celebrate that.
Sanchez.
Yeah.
Why don't have both?
I mean,
On that note.
that's more. I'd be more supportive of that, like
and
their
even if the
ability to do that.
Even if the socialist alternative had a party, that's their prerogative. But when you're the body for the university that represents every single student, that gives them right to legal counsel and like medical help and stuff, then it's not their position to do something like that.
I mean, if in
And they pass a shitload of motions like this as well.
there was one last year on Anzac Day where they apparently refused to pay $200 to lay a wreath at the.
And in the same meeting, they passed a
memorial.
motion saying that the student council recognises the disgusting privatisation by the Chilean government of certain. And I'm just like, what the fuck?
Student
like
governments
they-
trying to pass these ridiculous. Like I remember
Against
Monash
the
Student
Arabs,
Association had in one of their grand meetings was they were passing a motion coming out and saying that they are opposed to they're condemning armed conflict in the Gaza Strip.
It's like, guys, how about you just make my parking cheaper? I'm confident.
How about you tell me where my student indemnities fee is going, and then we'll sort everything out.
I want my
guys
Parma
to-
to be $2 cheaper. please.
Exactly.
Bring back my VSU,
What's your VSU?
voluntary student unionism.
Yeah.
I got no problem with, and this is probably a debate for another time. I got no problem with a compulsory union fee as long as it's going somewhere that's useful for students. My problem
Too
with
bad that students who decide where it goes suck.
well, no, but this is at Monash, the students who decide where it goes aren't students. It's mostly to do with the board.
Yeah.
I think the board keeps
Really?
They have student
quite a large
representatives.
proportion.
Yeah.
They have student representatives
it's a
who
rod.
inform.
It's not helping the students at all.
Yeah,
No.
it mostly goes to the board.
But
I
hey, those
believe
budget
at
cuts
Monash.
are going to put them under, so let's just leave
Yeah,
them
to
alone.
pay for
okay?
this.
There'll be no
Yeah,
university
Yeah, that's
education
what
for
I
anyone.
hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, let us drown each other in champagne.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's enough about politics. I want politics
Yes.
stuff for
Okay.
today.
Daft Punk.
Yeah.
Very
Take it away,
excited.
fellas.
17th
of May, I think.
I love
In
this song.
Weewa, the worldwide premiere of their new album, Random Access Memories, in Australia, in a little New South Wales country town, the population of like 500 or something.
Yeah, it's a pretty small town. You probably never heard of it.
Yeah. Very exciting.
Tried to get tickets, but apparently they released tickets 2 days earlier by mistake on the internet.
Apparently
and they actually sold some of them.
Apparently they released tickets that don't actually exist, and you have to not believe they exist to be able to buy them. But then when you buy
you have to
them,
go on masterticket.com.
You have to enter the grid.
You have to go into the source code of the website.
Yeah, that's very exciting. 2005, I think Human After All came out.
Was that the last one?
Was it? That was the last one, not including their live album from 2007. So it's been a very long time.
People have been playing that one song ever since.
Yeah. I think one more time we'll be getting a few rotations on the radio coming up in the next few weeks.
Daft Punk.
Moving on.
All right.
Phil, LucasArts.
Yeah.
Tell us more.
I don't want to take much time because this probably isn't interesting to anyone but me. But LucasArts is one of those game companies that's synonymous with the 90s. A lot of point-and-click adventure stuff like Indiana Jones, The Fate of Atlantis, a lot of like Tim Schafer point-and-click, so Data Tentacle and Full Throttle. And,
Data Tentacle.
Data
one of my
Tentacle.
favourites.
Well, okay, and the reason I wanted to bring this up is like...
Sounds like porn.
Was that the sequel to Information Leg?
Day of the Tentacle.
I thought it was Data Tentacle.
That's what I heard. Data
Tentacle.
That sounds great. Day of the Tentacle.
Dave the Tentacle.
Dave the Tentacle.
Dave the Tentacle. Yeah, what use is one tentacle on its own, not attached to anything?
A snake.
I reckon you could get
I
a lot
guess.
done.
So that it wouldn't have a brain in it, it'd just be an arm.
Well, then it would just be a disembodied tentacle.
Yeah, so what's the point?
So I'm guessing
Well,
this
then
game
I guess
didn't
the
sell
answer to your
very
question
many
is
copies.
disembodied arm of a squid.
They had to like dig a massive hole in the middle of nowhere and just drown Dave the Tentacle.
Oh yeah, what game did they do that
That was
with?
E.T.
E.T.
Yeah, E.T. on the Atari 600.
There's like 1 million copies in Utah.
Just in a landfill somewhere.
Yeah,
because it was
crazy.
just garbage.
So
anyway,
yeah, Dave the Tentacle.
Yeah, Dave the Tentacle has an adventure.
Wait, David Tentacle? Like David Tennant's weird brother?
No.
It's Day. Okay, we got it. It's Day of the Tentacle.
Day of the Tentacle.
I think we worked it out.
Anyway, I grew up playing Dave the Tentacle and Sam and Max Hit the Road and Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, and I single-handedly kind of those are the reasons why I like games today. I think it's really sad that like a historic company like that can like they didn't go out of business. Obviously, Disney bought LucasArts for the Star Wars properties
franchise.
It was last year, I think.
Oh, when they got the rights to the movies.
Yeah,
as well.
they bought basically LucasArts. George Lucas sold all his stock to Disney.
Yeah.
So Disney's been kind of like going through and looking at the books and like seeing.
Oh, and they shut them down.
Yeah, so they shut down the games, or at least the games development aspect of LucasArts, which can like all the titles can still be kind of like farmed out to other people and like games being made and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think it's a bit sad that one of those kind of like landmark publishers has just like petered out of existence. And in the last few years, stuff like Star Wars: The Force Unleashed was the best thing they could come up with. So I guess it's fair enough. They're probably not making enough money, but like it is like when you look back at the heyday, it is a bit sad that it's kind of like gotten to this point in time.
It is, and especially the fact that the new movies are coming out. You thought that'd be a premium time for them to come out and
and they had
some new games.
They had games in development that actually looked pretty good. Yeah. I mean, they were working on a game that was much like Battlefront 3 that would have been, and they were working on like an action game that was you were a bounty hunter in the Star Wars universe, which just looked and sounded awesome. Yeah. But like now that they're kind of up in the air, they might farm them out to other developers to bring out, but
with
no one really
success.
knows. Yeah, exactly. No one really knows.
It's gonna be an untried developer as well.
Yeah, no one really knows. I guess that's the issue. Yeah. What are you guys doing?
Huh?
What are you?
This is incredible.
We have now entered the period of the podcast where we look at Pete's Facebook.
Just respond to some messages.
We've reached the end
notifications
of
our discussion. Now you can
looking at porn's not appropriate, Pete.
Let's talk about
is it high definition?
We were going to talk about Game of Thrones, but we think it's probably too difficult to do that without giving away spoilers.
Pornography.
So
Or
instead, we're going
genitals.
to talk about Adam Scott and
Does
then
Sean
two
Bean
first
come
names.
back from the dead?
Yeah, 2 first names. Who's a good golfer?
Apparently, he's quite good at the golf.
Because the
Yeah.
tournament called the Masters, which you would assume has some decent golfers in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it'd just be false advertising.
Everyone in the golfing world has said that he should have won.
He nearly won
several
one. Yeah.
majors by now.
I
It's
remember
just
him
he
nearly
has
winning one last year.
Atrocious putting, and
He managed to get his
when
shit
they
together.
brought in the broom putters that are
Yeah.
like double-handed,
Yep.
like that's when he started getting better. But even with the double-handed putter, he was still pretty crap.
Are they outlawing those now?
Maybe. I hope not for his sake. Once he's
Yeah.
got his first major. But,
Well, maybe that's he's front loading
Like
now.
tomorrow
he's
if they did that.
And
good.
it's gone.
They're outlawing.
yeah.
Well, no, they are. They're saying that.
Well, no,
The
they're-
broom handles.
Yeah.
It's been around for 3 years now, and I don't think they'll get rid of
The
it.
old boom handles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although,
It's
like
designed
golf is
to be,
golf is a very
female
traditional game with lots of weird rules. So I mean, that is something that possibly you could see
Yeah.
coming out of it.
But I think it was just the ruling never said how long the shaft of the putter had to be, so that's how they got around it.
I just want to like point out the instant grin that everybody had on their face when you said shaft.
Yeah, I struggled not to laugh. We're so mature, aren't we? But yeah, no, it's great that an Australian
Penis.
won the first Masters competition. I think.
Of all time.
I don't even think
What?
Greg. What's his
The
name?
Shark.
The Shark. Even
Greg
won.
Norman.
Greg Norman.
Hold on. I'm gonna. You guys.
yeah.
You guys talk amongst yourselves. I'm gonna sort that out.
The
I think
Shack.
it's true.
Or maybe it's just the first one in ages,
No,
which
I
is
think-
not really as
Well,
impressive.
it's the first time in a while
Yeah.
at least.
If
If it's
all
not
the
if it's not the
80s.
if it's not the first ever, then
Masters tournament winners. Here we go.
yeah, this is like 17.
1833. Let's
Yeah.
go through it.
The Red Power Ranger.
1934. No, hold on. United States,
That's-
South Africa, United States.
Isle of Man.
Oh, maybe you're right, Will.
Far out.
Adam
I
Scott,
thought I
Australia.
heard that on the news. He was the first Australian.
Yeah,
Hmm,
it
there you
looks that
To win
way.
a Grand
South
Slam.
Africa was the first one
That wasn't
apart from
American.
the
Gary
American.
Palmer in 1960.
Oh, what a name.
Oh, yeah.
That's a strong name.
Yeah.
He won
Is
it
it-
won it a bunch of times actually.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wait, no, that's different guys. The second two were Gary Player, but also from South.
Oh,
South
really?
Africa.
Oh, I
yeah.
love it when you get out the stats, Pete.
Oh, you know, this is what sells podcasts. We're going to shift a lot of units this week.
I think we've reached the
Yeah.
end.
I think that's just
I
about
think
it.
we're out of puff. Those chocolate chip cookies that we
Yeah,
started.
we're on the
We're
down.
crashing.
Yeah.
exactly. We're on the sugar
Crashing
crash.
hard.
Yeah.
That's the problem with having so much chocolate and not
When
enough
when you
carbs.
have 40% chocolate chips
It's-
in
yeah,
a chocolate cookie.
It's not sufficient carb to get you through a full podcast.
No, it's too high GI.
Yeah.
Too high GI.
Can we just, we'd just like to say to Coles, could you please change your chocolate chip cookies with like a bit more cookie and a bit less chocolate because they make for bad
That's
podcasts.
I don't sign off on that. I think that's the thing I've
I think
disagreed
Today's
with
podcast is
most.
sponsored by Coles chocolate chip
Yeah.
cookies. 40% chocolate chips.
Guys, can we pass a motion to condemn the use of 40% chocolate chips in the chocolate chip
I
cookies?
second that motion,
It's-
Duncan.
Second.
That's about
Their
twice.
horrific neoliberal use of chocolate is making me disgusted. Alright.
All
All
right.
right. Join us next week.
And make sure
Hopefully we'll start posting these within a week of recording them. So we're gonna streamline that process.
yeah,
So
we don't so much do the news section now as we do the old section, but we'll try and correct that.
Yeah, we're gonna just stick with us.
Yeah.
It'll be okay.
But keep it on thebucketjournal.com, our favorite website. And,
Yep.
up posting
Yeah, we
things
got
throughout the
a
week.
yeah.
What have we got coming, Pete?
This week we have up at the moment we have Dave McIndoe's article on special relativity.
It's relatively special.
It's
though.
relatively special. It's much better than his article on normal relativity, which I thought was quite unspecial. And then I believe you got something coming this week, Phil. And
Yeah.
We've got a new TV review from Jess Tamberg, our TV reviewer, coming in tomorrow. We're not
Which
gonna,
will be probably yesterday by the time we get this update.
well, yeah, it'll be last week by the time you're hearing this. And then you'll have all your usual sporting coverage through the latter part of the week with James Manton and Jack Palazzo. So if that's not enough to get excited about, you obviously haven't eaten enough chocolate chip cookies.
So
That's all I'll say.
Do we have a sex column?
We used to. We
I'll
don't
show you
anymore.
a sex column.
I
And
would
with
like
that,
Done. Wait, we're still recording this?